Hello, welcome to Bike World. Here's what's coming up on tonight's show. I'm in Corsica to ride the KTM 1290 Super Adventure, and Chris heads out to Australia for the launch of the all-new Suzuki GSX-R1000. But first, John's a happy boy on the new Triumph Speed Triple 765.
Finally, after months and months of what felt like nothing but retro bikes, open face helmets, beards, roll bottom jeans, and retro heritage style stuff to ride on Bike World, we get the chance to ride something with a bit of performance. We've been waiting a long time to get our little hands on this new Triumph Street Triple RS. We went to Spain, Catalonia, MotoGP track. The ingredients were all there. It was going to be perfect. And then it pissed it down. So as we saw at the London Unveil a couple of months ago, the hype was very, very real with the Street Triple. Increased capacity, all new electronics, tweaks to the chassis, new swing arm design, move the swing arm pivot, all these little bits and pieces, upgraded brakes, amazing suspension. So there are actually 3 new models of Street Triple, and there are 5 variants within those 3 models. So there's an R, an S, and the RS. The RS was the only bike that we rode out in Spain. There's also an A2 license-friendly version. There's also a low seat-friendly version. We should say now that the A2 license-friendly version is the only one that comes with the existing or outgoing 675 Triple. All the other bikes in the range benefit from this stunning new 765 Triple. So the spec sheet is absolutely dripping with the kind of techno perv that gets me going. Surely it gets you going. We're talking Brembo M50 calipers with a Brembo master cylinder, mated to show big piston forks with an Öhlins STX piggyback shock out the back, coupled with beautiful Pirelli Diablo Super Corsa SP tyres. It's the perfect recipe for middleweight roadsters and the perfect recipe for the best Street Triple ever made. So that 765 motor has over 80 new parts in comparison to the outgoing 675 motor. You get new pistons, new crankshaft, conrods, Nicosil liners. They've gone through the whole thing from bottom to top. The result is 121 horsepower and about 77 newton meters of torque. On paper alone, it looks and sounds amazing. On the road, it looks and sounds amazing. So that motor perfectly complements the changes that Triumph has made to the chassis. The new swing arm design, they've shifted the swing arm pivot. The whole thing is a little bit more aggressive. There's a little bit more weight over the front. It's kind of gone a little bit further down that super sport road. Finally, a chance to get on the bike, get out and ride the roads in Spain, make our way to Catalonia and have some fun. So jump on, stick a key in the thing, and the TFT screen comes to life. There's a ginormous array of choices that you can have. You spend a little bit of time setting the screen up for you. If you're into Star Wars, you can make it look like Star Wars. If you're into retro stuff, there's a retro style. It's basically as futuristic as you want to get it, where the rev needle doesn't just sweep round, it kind of comes up round the sides. It does absolutely everything. Essentially, all the information is still in there. A little bit gimmicky for me, but the tech is absolutely on point. It's really, really good stuff, and you can play with it. If you're one of those people that just likes to sit and tinker and get things just how you want them before you go for a ride, this bike is made for you. A little joystick on the left, a couple of buttons on the right. It is pretty intuitive. You can get used to using it, and you'll figure out how to set the thing up to make it work for you visually, as well as the rider modes that we'll come to that you can use out on the road. I know lots of you will be sitting at home going, no, I do everything like this, traction control lives in here. I've said it before, I'm not that kind of rider. So along with that TFT screen, there is a bunch of rider modes that you can choose from as well. Rain, road, sport, track, and rider. Each one very different. Each one lends itself to a road riding environment or a road riding condition that you'll need to put up with. The 675, in the 10 years that it's been in existence and the 50,000 units that they've sold in showrooms like this one, is a big hitter. It's the kind of bike that when you're putting road tests together, it's almost like you can feel the rest of the bikes in the test shrugging and packing their kit up and going home. It's just such a good bike for the money. It's such a good bike because it has the perfect balance of power, performance, ease of use, and accessibility for every kind of rider. If you're a new guy, you'll get on with the Street Triple. And also, if you're a lady, this bike has that ease of getting both feet on the ground. I know confidence with ride height is quite an issue with lots of lady riders. This bike does that too. So all that new power, all that new performance, all those new trick rider bits to play with. And unfortunately for us, it did rain quite heavily out in Spain. We can't dwell on it, it is what it is. We had to get stuck in, which is exactly what we did. Now, this is gonna sound a little bit negative, but I'll get to the reasons why in a bit. I was a tiny bit underwhelmed with the first half an hour on this bike. The reasons why, I think, were because I'd built it up to be just like the outgoing 675, but bigger and better. And it kind of is, but that increased capacity with the motor, the increased focus on it being more super sports than kind of performance road bike, for me just meant that you have to tuck in and work a little bit harder to find the bits of the Street Triple that are very good in this new model that you could find within seconds and by the end of the road on the outgoing version. You have to work a little bit harder to get into the good bits of the 765. That's no bad thing. Like we said, on paper the front end should be amazing, and on the road it was amazing. But you've just got to tuck in, try a little bit harder, go digging into those corners a little bit more, push your luck a little bit, carry a little bit more corner speed, and you'll see just how capable this 765 is. The point that I'm trying to get at isn't that this bike is bad, it's just that the other bike, the outgoing version, was very good at doing all things for all men. This is slightly more focused and slightly more of a super sport bike than you probably think. A test ride will prove to you what I'm getting at. It's not a bad bike. You've just got to try a little bit harder and go a little bit faster and have a little bit more fun than you probably think you do. And you definitely, sorry, I'm waffling. So this bike surely should appeal more to more people. I'm waffling again. So what I'm saying is this. The new 765 Street Triple is amazing on the road. It's just very different to what I expected. A little bit more like the Speed Triple than it is like the existing Street Triple. There, said it. Road riding manners were ace. Great on the brakes. You would think M50's big, scary litre sports bike brakes work perfectly with this bike. Changes direction perfectly, holds a line. All those bits and pieces on paper translate into a fantastic road riding experience. The point that I was trying to get at earlier about the performance being tucked further around the rev range is fine if you're happy to go looking for it. Just hang on to the revs, the bike comes alive. Everything is in perfect tune with everything else. There are some bikes out there from other manufacturers where the motor is all singing and all dancing and the brakes and suspension can't cope and can't keep up. This isn't one of those bikes. We made our way through the slop, through the puddles, past all these crazy Spanish truck drivers who seem to be hell-bent on killing all of us. And eventually we made it to Catalunya circuit, a MotoGP circuit for a naked 765 street bike. A ballsy move from Triumph, I think. If anything, it just shows how confident they are in the performance and capability of this bike. This is effectively a naked supersport bike, so on track is where this bike for me felt the most at home. That little rev range that I couldn't quite find on the road unless I was absolutely hanging the thing out was all there for me to use wherever I wanted it. It was absolutely brilliant fun on track. Made learning a new circuit like Catalunya very easy. It's an easy bike to ride fast. Not massively powerful. You're not clinging on and hanging onto the thing while it bucks and weaves and goes all over the place. Those brakes make sense, that suspension makes sense. Those rider modes, once you've played with them and you've got them how you want, they make sense as well. This bike makes more sense on track for me than it did on the road, bizarrely. Unfortunately, after that first 20-25 minute session we came in, heavens opened and it rained. But the great thing about this bike for me, and the big thing that I took from the launch, was how confidence-inspiring this whole package was. I didn't know when it was lashing with rain that everybody else in my session and in my group had come in. And basically I had the Catalunya circuit to myself. I was riding around and around and around. Wasn't going particularly fast, but where I was able to lean on the traction control, start finish straight as fast as it would in the dry. On the brakes, a couple of times I outbroke myself, ran off the track or ran wide, but that's a confidence issue that I found. I was placing lots of confidence in the bike, but I didn't actually have the skill set to tap into to do what I eventually would end up having to do. Street Triple RS, a mega bike. It's going to be great fun. I do wish that I'd had the chance to ride it in the dry. I do wish that I'd had the chance to ride it for a little bit longer than we did. Spring isn't far away, summer will be here soon. Dealers like this one that we're sat in now are going to have these things sat there waiting for people to test ride, and I'm going to be one of the guys that jumps on them. On that note, there are a couple of other bikes that will follow after the RS. So there's the £9,990 top of the range RS that we've just been talking about, and there's the £8,900 R, then there's the £8,000 S, and then beneath that you have the A2 version, which, like I say, has the existing motor in it rather than this new big bore 765, and there's a low seat height version available as well. The price point for me is a little bit higher up the tree than I expected it to be, but you don't get all of that tech for free. These things cost money. Development costs money. It's that simple. Is the RS worth the asking price? 100% yes. Is it the perfect bike for you? Well, I can't answer that. You're going to have to go and ride one for yourself. This could be the perfect middleweight roadster.
Life as a bike world presenter is often stressful. There's a lot of travelling involved, but then you end up in places like this and you can see the view behind me. The sun's shining, it's beautiful. I wouldn't exactly call this a job, but we do still have work to do, and today's work is all on the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. So in the presentation last night, KTM mentioned that they'd just had their 6th consecutive record year with global sales of over 200,000 bikes. What I found amazing was the fact that they've reinvested 140 million euros back into their R&D projects to basically make better bikes, to throw as much money as they can into technology. And this 1290S was just full of technology. First thing I've got to mention is the WP forks, which are 48mm, and they are semi-active, which basically means the damping is adjusted depending on what setting you've got. There's 4 types of settings: comfort, sport, street and off-road. Depending which setting you have it on will determine how hard or how fast the damping is adjusted and how fast it's slowed down. So for instance, comfort and street, there's a lot slower damping, it's a lot more progressive, and it makes for a much smoother ride. In sport mode, the anti-dive isn't as soft, so you get a bit more of a feeling through the front end. You get a lot more feedback through those forks, which means you can just push it a little harder through the tight and twisty turns. The rear WP shock comes with 4 different presets depending who's riding and what they're riding with. So if you're a solo rider, if you're a solo rider with luggage, if you're 2-up or 2-up with luggage, you can set that preset, which will make for a much more comfortable ride. The new TFT screen is brilliant. There's no reflection on it with it being Gorilla Glass. It's just like having an iPad sat in front of you. All the information you need is clearly displayed, and it won a CES award for innovation. It's really clean, really crisp. I personally really like it. I know a lot of people like the old school analog tachos, but this is kind of the future, so this is where all the technology is heading, and you're going to see bikes with these all over now. Another cool feature is the illuminated switch gears on both sides. Made it really easy to spot them in the dark, and it's just a really nice little touch. So I've noticed some feedback on that front end already, and it's a bit polarized. Some people don't like it, some people like it. And the reason KTM have done it is because of the LED lights. Now the LED lights need cooling down because they do get very hot. And the way they do that normally is they bolt them to a block of aluminium. Now normally that aluminium's hidden behind a plastic cover, but they tried to incorporate it into the design. So right down the middle strip is the block of aluminium, which the LEDs are bolted to. The engine is 160 brake horsepower, which makes it the most powerful in the sector. I can't believe I'm saying there's a bike with 160 brake horsepower that you could technically go off-road on. Obviously the R version is for the off-road, but still, 160 brake horsepower. It's also got a power-assisted slipper clutch. They've also reduced the weight of the pistons and taken 47 grams off each of them, which just helps add to that power. Cool little feature on this bike is the fact that it's a keyless ignition. So as long as the key is on your person or on the bike, you can start it up. And if you're worried about those batteries running out on that key, never fear. There's a little sensor at the side of the dash which will allow you to press the key up against it. It'll unlock the bike, it'll allow the bike to start, and you'll be able to get home or get to the nearest battery shop. A little interesting point is that they've gone for cast wheels over spoke wheels on this one. Now obviously the R being the total out and out off-road bike comes with the spokes. This one comes with cast wheels, and they're trying to go down a more sporty route with this. They're saying that it's going to be able to keep up with super sport bikes, and to be honest, if you put someone like Chris Northover on it, the chances are it will keep up with them. One thing the cast wheels do help with is the unsprung weight. Obviously they're a lot lighter than the spoke wheels, so it helps with that agility through the tight and twisty turns. But is it really that sporty? Well, we headed up over there somewhere to find out. So KTM brought us out to Corsica, and I've never been here before, but it's an absolute stunning location. There's literally everything you need to test ride a bike here. Nice open roads, tight twisty roads, sunshine most of the time. And when we set off, we headed down the coast road and then we headed up into the mountains. And because of the weight of it, I was a little apprehensive going into the tight and twisty turns. But as the day went on, as I was able to push it more, as the roads dried out, as the sun came out, I started to push more and more, became more confident in it, and then I realised just how good this bike is. With the assistance of the cornering ABS, you could get really hard on the brake. There's a few times I made a few mistakes, went into a few corners a little bit too hot, just had to apply more front brake, and the bike just stuck. It just stuck every time I asked it to. Just pitched it into the turns and it turned. And you soon lose the concept that this bike weighs over 215k out on those roads. So this KTM comes with a great travel pack. It includes heated grips, ABS, quick shifter, like the majority of bikes nowadays. I had a little bit of a play with the settings. Was using the ABS to begin with on the road setting, and it worked phenomenal. On the back brake as hard as you want, on the front brake as hard as you want, and the ABS kicked in and it kept you nice and safe. After a few hours on the bike, I decided to switch it to off-road just to see what difference it made, and going into the first hairpin on the back brake, trying to back it in a little bit for the cameras, make it look good obviously. It came around a little too much and I nearly fell off. But don't tell KTM that. So as part of the travel pack, the bike comes with a quick shifter, and this is an adaptable system which will adapt to your riding style. So if you're a little slower through the gearbox, it will extend that cut time only by a millisecond, but it'll extend it just enough for you to get into the gearbox. If you're a little bit quicker, again, we're only talking milliseconds here, but it is an advancement in that technology. Because we were up in the mountains, we were up and down the gearbox practically all day, and that quick shifter was essential. It made it so much easier to ride. You didn't have to be on and off the clutch all the time. So like I mentioned before, KTM are pushing this bike more down the sport side of adventure touring, so they left the bike in sport mode for the majority of the day. The only time I changed it was when it started to rain. Sport mode kept the bike loose, it gave us great feedback, and we still got everything that 1300cc beastly engine has got to offer. And what's a bike world launch without a little bit of rain? Up in the mountains, it started to rain halfway through the day, but that was all right. All I did was change the settings across to rain mode. It reduced that power for maximum grip. The traction control kicked in exactly when I needed it, and the bike was very, very confidence inspiring in the rain as well. It felt just as good in the rain as it did in the dry. So all in all, we covered around 200 kilometers yesterday, and we were on the bike for the majority of the day, and to be honest, it was very, very comfortable. There's a vast array of different adjustments you can make, from the handlebars to the seat to the foot peg and even the gear lever. The seat height was set at 860mm, which is the lowest setting of the two. A simple adjustment can take it all the way up to 875. For a taller rider like me at just over 6 foot, it's probably better to have it a little bit taller than it actually was. But that being said, it was really comfortable, and I could have easily gone and done another 200 kilometers on it. So a new experience for me here on Bike World was taking one of these bikes on a launch out at night. Now the reason KTM wanted us to do this was to experience the corner assisted lighting. They took us out to a remote part of the island where we got to ride the roads in pitch black darkness, and basically the way the system works is as you pitch the bike into a turn, there's 3 different stages of lighting that will come on and help you around the corner. The further you lean into a corner, or the longer the turn, the brighter the light will shine, which will allow you to see through the corner a lot more, which means you can be a little more aggressive and a little bit faster through those turns. So like all modern bikes, in fact, the modern world, connectivity is essential nowadays, and with the KTM MyRide you can receive phone calls, you can listen to your music, you can scroll through your music, all from the comfort of the bike without having to touch your phone. There's a little compartment to pop your phone in with a USB charger, which means you can listen to your music all day and receive calls, which is pretty cool. Brembo brakes all round, 4-pot radial calipers on the front. As you'd expect from Brembos, they were brilliant. They stopped me when I needed to. Now I don't know if it was a combination of the brakes, the semi-active suspension, all the electronics package that's going on in that bike, but there's a few times when I could have easily come a cropper, but with the cornering ABS, I don't know what it was, but thankfully it might have been wizardry, but whatever it was, it helped me stick to the road, and thankfully I didn't come a cropper. So hopefully here at Bike World we're inspiring you to get out and find new locations, and what better bike to do it on than the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. but how much is it going to set you back? The bike retails for $14,299 with two different colour options in the black and the KTM orange. This bike sits in a hotly contested genre of sports adventure bikes alongside the likes of the Multistrada and the BMW GS. I think we should take all three of these bikes across to Wales, have a bit of a head-to-head challenge with Chris Northover, spend a couple of days there, really get to know these bikes and see which one comes out on top.
I always get asked the question of, why do you do it? I just ride, I just do my thing, what I like and what I enjoy, and just, it's like the world just stops. And that feeling of just nothingness. I don't think I'd trade it for anything, ever.
Okay, so finally, long last, been waiting a few years, Suzuki has brought out a new GSX-R1000. The old bike was not rubbish. The old bike was a great bike and a lot of people loved it, but it's fair to say things have moved on, you know, with the current crop of Japanese sports bikes and the European guys coming into. The old GSX-R was getting a little bit left behind in terms of outright performance, particularly on track. And Suzuki made it clear from the start with this new model, they're going for the jugular. They're not going out for the practical sports bike, the all-round bike. They are going for the best 1000cc sports bike. And that's a hell of a bold claim, especially when, you know, you're not a small update. This is an all-new bike. There's hardly a component. I think the engineer said the foot pegs are the same. So big claim. What have they done? 202 horsepower and then 200 kilos. If you get the ABS version, it's 203 kilos. So the numbers add up and the numbers are all there. Technical changes. One of the biggest surprises, I think a few people expected electronic suspension on this bike. The engineers tested it and they said, no, it's better with the new Showa balance-free suspension, they call it, which looks like a gas fork off of a superbike. In terms of the engine, we've got a seamless quick shifter up and down the box, so no clutch at all, just hold the throttle open, up the quick shifter, brake, back down the box. We've got race ABS, traction control, we've got a really, really, really effective slipper clutch. You know, if there's a list of things that you want on a superbike, they're on it. They haven't really missed anything at all. The LCD screen on this bike has got all the information that you'd expect. It's got lap times, it's got a rev hold counter on it, it's got a shift light. Same as all bikes these days, there's so much stuff on them. We could waste hours talking through all of it, but the most important thing, that the GSX-R is back. It's hard, fast, and it's out for the crown. And we're gonna take it out to Phillip Island now, put a few laps in, see how she goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you enjoy that?
That is absolutely awesome. That's our second session now on the GSX-R, and easy is probably the best word. I mean, Phillip Island, I've never been here before. What a challenging track. Ups, downs, blind corners, so fast. But with this bike, you can just get going straight away. You're not thinking about, oh, when's the power going to come in, or You know, how's it going to behave on the brakes? Just everything so far has been easy, stable, predictable, and the power is incredible. But again, there's no leap, there's no sudden surge. Everything's just really linear. So yeah, nothing but praise for it so far. And a few more sessions this afternoon on some stickier tyres, so we'll be able to push the chassis a bit harder and do some more skids. It's warm enough here. It's a bit hotter than Wales. Definitely struggling with the heat a bit now. I'm just going to run through a few of the technical items on the new GSX-R1000. A few of the kind of big changes they've made. A few of the highlights. I mentioned already the forks. You know, they've stepped away from the electronic suspension. The engineers are saying that they don't feel that it's advanced enough to give you an advantage on track at the moment. They still feel it's not quite there yet, and they did say yet, so maybe a clue for future mods. Brakes were a bit of a criticism on earlier GSX-Rs. A few changes to the setup, different discs, larger disc, 10mm bigger disc on it. No problems at all with the brakes. It's 4 million degrees outside, and we're pushing hard and riding hard, and there's a lot of hard braking here, and not a single issue so far. So I'm pleased to say the brakes are absolutely spot on. A few of the kind of major structural changes to this bike. Firstly, the engine. They've tilted the cylinders back 6 degrees, effectively shortening the engine. Now further forwards, closer to the front wheel. So they've moved the swing arm pivot closer as well, 20mm closer to the front wheel. The wheelbase has grown by 15mm, 1405 to 1420 now, but the engine and the body weight is much further forward on the bike, improving front end feel. Narrower and shorter as well. The engine's 6.5mm narrower than the old one. The frame's lighter, the tank's narrower, the fairing's narrower, the tank's lower. The whole bike has been made much more compact and sleek. Usually when you hear that, you expect the next line to be, there's no wind protection, it's horrible to ride, but they've done a lot of wind tunnel testing. They were emphasising that a lot in the presentation. Nice and easy to tuck behind the screen. Okay, the exhaust system. Yeah, I think the end can's already had a bit of a flaming by the experts of the internet. It is a big end can, but there's a Yoshimura one for sale aftermarket, and that looks fantastic, and that's what most of us will do anyway. May not look it by my sweaty, red-faced appearance, but best thing about this new GSX-R1000, easy to ride. The harder you push, it just wants to go with you. We've just done kind of our last session of the day. The GSX-R just took everything I could throw at it. I've outbraked myself countless times, ran wide in turns, squeeze a bit more brake in, put it in on its side, and the thing just sucks up everything you throw at it. It looks like a GSX-R, it feels like a GSX-R, but it's lighter, it's faster, and it's more sophisticated than ever before. It's going to be really interesting getting this back in the UK, back on track, and test it against its competitors. But at the moment, Suzuki's aim is to outdo every other 1000cc sports bike. I'm not going to commit to saying yes or no, but it's pretty damn close.